Hello and welcome to the shop. Today we are talking about not this car, this is the Mustang. This is on hold for a little while until I get parts. This car. This is my 1993 Mercury Capri. And back here we have a shelf full of parts. And why do I have a shelf of parts? Well, these cars, they didn't make very many of them. And really aside from major components like brake rotors, brake pads, belts, and alternators, it's really hard to find any parts for these cars. Things like the headlights, you can find the bulbs, but you can't actually get the headlight if something happens to it. These plastic reflectors and the fog lights, anything like mirrors, any interior pieces, any body panels, if you happen to, have any damage to it. You really can't find any of those parts because they only made these cars from 1991 to 1994. So the only way to really get parts for this car is by going on eBay or a junkyard and finding someone who's parting one out. And since they only made this car for 4 years, there's only so many cars in existence, and the number of cars has been going down every year as they slowly rust away in people's fields or they get crashed or whatever. So that is why I have a shelf of spare parts over here, because if anything happens to this car, I've got spares over here to fix it, because otherwise I'd just be out of luck. I wouldn't be able to fix it. So what is this video going to be about? Well, I bought a parts car, and as you can see, the front is smashed pretty good. But this car, if we look over on this side, the car looks great. If we look at this side, it does not. So I bought it from a salvage auction thinking that, it would just be a bad title, it'd be in a crash, and I'd be able to just take parts off of it. I could part out the stuff I don't need, and I could have spares for my little project car in the back. But this car is too nice. It's actually, I gotta confess, it's nicer than my car. This is a 91, and we're gonna just do a quick walk around and talk about this car and why I feel bad just cutting it apart and stripping it for parts. And now a quick word from our sponsor, Absolutely Nobody. If you're enjoying the content you're seeing, please give a like and subscribe, and let's just jump right back to the video. Okay, the reason I'm conflicted about just cutting this car apart or just stripping it for parts and then sending it to the scrapyard is because aside from the front end damage, the rest of the car is, I don't want to say immaculate, but it is very, very good for a 30-year-old car. It was clearly well kept. The body panels are all straight. I'm not seeing there's a little rock chip right there, but there's no dents. It doesn't look like it's been door dinged. There's very little rust. Let me see if I can get the camera underneath the car. So for a Pennsylvania car, this was garage kept. This was clearly very well taken care of. So things are a little bit oily and greasy down there, but overall it is in great condition. Let's look inside the trunk. All of this is this is perfect in here. Those lights probably still work if I could connect the battery. In here, underneath the floor, still looks great. The headlights or the tail lights are good. The housings aren't cracked or damaged or anything. The factory exhaust is still here. It doesn't look like it's rusted through. Rear suspension, everything still looks okay. I did a quick check the other day. It might need some wheel bearings, but otherwise, this car's in great condition. I'm trying to charge up the battery to see if I can get the engine running, just to make sure that still works. But sitting inside the car, the transmission feels great. It's got 124,000 miles. The glass is all good. The mirrors are good. The convertible top is in great condition. There's no tears or holes or anything. It's not super sun faded, so this was clearly kept indoors. If we go inside, like these door cards, aside from being a little bit dirty from getting in and out, like these are in really good condition. All the weather stripping on the windows is in good condition. Yeah, the seats, like they're a little bit dirty. They, need to be vacuumed, but these came with seat covers on them, so that definitely helped. The rear seat is in good condition. The rear, the parcel shelf up there, that's in good condition. The seat belts aren't all ripped and frayed. There's this little hole in the seat, but otherwise, the seat is really good. All the pieces are still here. The switches for the convertible top and for moving the seats forward. The interior's in good condition. The glove compartment, it's in good condition. There's some spare fuses in there. The HVAC vents are still good. They're not super full of dust and nasty. This doesn't look like the stock head unit, but it hasn't been all ripped up and had some other aftermarket system put in here. The center console is still in nice condition. The shift boot isn't all torn up. We've still got the switches, the mirror controls. This isn't all dirty and filthy. And then all the gauges are in really good condition. The clear cover isn't all scratched up. We've got the switches for the headlights. Everything is just in really nice condition. It's not all scratched up and destroyed. None of the airbags went off. I think it only has the one in the steering wheel. It's got air conditioning. So this is still a very nice car aside from the front end damage. We still have the rear view mirror on mine that got ripped off at some point. But the door jamb, this is all nice in here. Good original paint. It's dirty, but it's too nice. I feel bad just scrapping it and taking all the parts off. Okay, this is a comparison between the two cars. So we took the hood off and we can see the damage is all of this front structure here. The part that's behind the bumper is actually untouched. It looks like that square post that bolts on, that doesn't look like it's been crumpled whatsoever. Anything back here, these little plastic fins would have broken if it had been pushed back. Those are pretty brittle. And then the other side also looks like it's in good condition. It wasn't hit. So whatever hit the car or whatever the car ran into must have been above this front bumper, which it's a very low car, so that's very possible. It looks like we just have some of the plastic clips that hold the bumper must have broken. The headlights were ripped off. This was just sitting in here. The radiator is pushed back. It's basically touching the engine. These radiator support brackets are all bent into S shapes, and that is not really supposed to happen. The plastic tabs on the headlight pod broke off. So this is just sitting in here loosely. So it looks like mainly this piece, which is welded in, we can't just unbolt it and bolt a new one in. And then some of the structure that's back here, that the headlight pods mount into, the radiator mounts up to. We can see this structure back here is, I'm assuming it's supposed to be straight up and down, but it is not anymore. So I think that structure is the problem. Obviously headlights, some of these corner markers that go here, and then the hood. So hood is smashed up, not usable. Now let's do a comparison with my other car. This one was also in an accident, funnily enough. The previous owner hit a deer. It crunched in this front piece. That's pretty common on these cars. Again, because they're so low, they just get hit up here. The headlights were ripped off and they were just being held on with zip ties when I bought it. I'll put some pictures on screen, but basically I found another Capri in a junkyard. I cut out this front piece, had a body shop welded in because at the time I was in college, I didn't have any welding capabilities. So I just had that happen. You can actually see a little bit of red paint from where that was done. And then that was just kind of welded and seam sealed to join it with this car. So we can see this is what it's supposed to look like. We're supposed to have approximately this much clearance between the radiator and the engine. This has some extra piping in the front because it is a turbocharged car. This plate has a little bit of an S shape, but really not much. And then this kind of matches it. It's mostly flat compared to this one. This one is still pretty close. This one might be able to just be bent straight. This one is a lot worse. So that's gonna have to be fixed some other way. Okay, so I've done a little bit more work and damage assessment on this car. This headlight, the plastic tabs in the back are broken off, but most of the components are still here. The hinge mechanism hasn't snapped off. This is a little out of alignment. But overall, I think that has most of the parts still there. The bulb is still there. We have our two corner markers right here. This kind of looks like something may have snapped off. But for the most part, it's held on with those two screws, and those are still there. They haven't broken off. Same on this side, we've got the two screws there and there. On the other side, this one, also the tabs have broken off. But the back piece is still there. The motor is still there. So we have some of the pieces. These plastic parts for the hinge snap all the time because it's just brittle plastic. It's got the heat from the engine bay, and it's 30 years old at this point. So this is what the inside of the headlight looks like. We have the kind of the outside shell that's still here. We have the inner headlight socket. And then this top piece is all, it's bent up, the paint's peeling off it. I don't know if that can be saved. And then this part, the parts for the hinge on the back have broken off. But some stuff is still there and we might be able to plastic weld some things. But I went through my collection of spare parts for this car and laid out all the ones that we might need to repair the red car. So the top of the headlight, I have this spare one that obviously came from a white car at some point that is undamaged. We could use that. Same thing here. We have the kind of the headlight, the surround cover. We have the socket, but this one also has the plastic pieces on the back broken off. We have two different, driver side, the backing plates and the motors. We have one of the missing corner markers. The front clear one we'll have to get from somewhere else, but those are usually pretty easy to find. So those are, some of the easiest things to part out. On the other side, we have multiple spares to choose from, but we might not even need those because we still have them on this car. Same thing with the headlight. We might be able to reuse it, but if not, we have a backing plate and a motor. Now, the big items, a radiator. I forget which car I got it from. I've I had another parts car in the past. I'll put a picture on screen. This one was actually more damaged, had more rust, the interior was destroyed, the engine was blown up, so that one I didn't feel bad about parting out. I think that's where this radiator came from, and also these two radiator supports, which are very important and very messed up on our red car. So those, we just have drop-in replacements for. This one might still be able to fix, and I don't know if that radiator is compromised, if it's leaking, but we have a spare one sitting over here, which is great, because I imagine those are pretty hard to find. We also have some spare like subframe parts over there, and then I don't remember which car it came from, but since our hood is messed up, I happen to also have this spare hood laying around, and it is in near perfect shape. So, I mean, I've been carrying this around just because I know it's impossible to find one that's not from another car. So this one, when this was crunched in and the hood was crunched by the previous owner, that was able to be fixed, but I still wanted a spare hood just in case anything ever happened. And that one has never been in a crash. I forget if I got that from the red car at the junkyard where most of the spare parts came from, or if it was from the other red car that I parted out. But either way, we have a spare hood, radiator, most of the headlight supports. The main issue is going to be the pivot points because those snap off all the time, like the mounting tabs. And then this front body piece right here. On our red car, that is all smashed in where the hood normally latches to. So this piece is kind of the big unknown. I'm going to try and jumpstart the engine using a battery from a different car because the battery that came with the car is totally dead. It's at like 0 volts, so I can't recondition it, I can't recharge it, but I really want to know if this engine runs. It has oil in it, but there's a little bit of coolant underneath the car, so I don't know if the radiator was damaged in the crash, if all the coolant is out, so I won't run it for a long time, but I do want to turn it over, see if it works, and do a compression check to make sure that the engine is healthy. Yeah, so I'm going to do that, but for the most part, it looks like, you know, aside from the structural piece right here that's damaged, we have all the spare parts we need already on hand. And then we can repair this and it'll be a great condition, 0 rust, fully functioning car with a little bit of reconstruction. This car has a salvage title and it's also been branded as reconstructed. So it's been repaired once before. It was salvaged and then the repair was done and they went through the inspection process to get a clean title, except it's not fully clean. It's gonna be branded as reconstructed, so you know it was rebuilt once before. And then this crash happened, so now I'm wondering if I can reconstruct it for a second time using the spare parts that I got for this car back here. So we are going to harvest the battery from the Mustang while that is waiting patiently for parts and more time to work on it. But in the meantime, we've got this little Capri. We'll try and diagnose the engine health and see how it's going. So last time I was here, I did a compression test on our 91 Capri. So cylinder 1, which is furthest that way, that one was 185 PSI, cylinder 2 was 182, cylinder 3 was 120 PSI, and cylinder 4 was 165 PSI. The 120 PSI was kind of concerning. It's still high enough to run, but it's a lot lower than the others. So I added like 1 tablespoon roughly, or basically like a cap full of the oil jug, just directly into the cylinder, and then I did the test again, and when I retested that cylinder, it came up to 150 PSI. So by adding oil, that means that our piston rings are kind of the culprit. So it's probably not a head gasket. It's probably just the piston rings either, I mean, you hope it's not catastrophically damaged, but they're probably a little bit worn. It could just be the car hasn't ran for a while because it was crashed. It went to an auction, and it takes multiple months to go through that process. And it was probably just sitting in a yard, not running at all for multiple months until all the insurance stuff was sorted out. The auction was legally allowed to sell it, and then it had to go on the auction block and get sold and then get transported, where it eventually wound up here. I checked the spark plugs while I was in there, and I noticed some lifter tick. So lifter tick is normal for these engines, the Mazda 1.6 engines. They have, at least these early 90s ones, they have hydraulic lifters, which is good because that means I can take them apart and clean them, if nothing else. It also shares a lot of parts with other Mazda and early 90s Ford 1.6 engines. So you can still find like new parts out there. And you just have to take off the valve cover and take the camshaft out, but it's all easily accessible right from the top. It's not like we have to do a big rebuild or anything. Or it could just be from having, no oil in the top end for months because it didn't run at all, which would also explain why one piston ring was a little dry, because the engine hadn't had fresh oil pumped through it for months. Well, here, let me stop this and then talk about my plans for the car. I never ended up filming an outro for this section, but my plans with the car, if I haven't made myself clear in the video, I do plan on fixing the front end damage, getting it running and driving and reliable, and then we will go through the paperwork process to get it inspected and get the title cleared and get it able to be registered and back on the road, license plates, everything fully legal. And then my long-term plans for the car, at least right now, I'm planning on selling the car. I already have the one kind of sportier version of the car that I have more sentimental attachment to, so that's probably the car I'm going to end up keeping. This one will just be like a nice example that we can keep, we can fix it up and keep it on the road instead of having it just kind of disappear from existence due to a little bit of front end damage. So it's kind of like we're doing like a conservation effort to keep this endangered species from going extinct. But if you want to see any more automotive content like this or any of the other projects I have going in the background, I have a small engine project. You can check out some of those videos on the channel. I've started on the Mustang and mentioned that a couple times. We're kind of just waiting to get through the this red Capri rebuild to get more space in the shop so we can have room to get more parts for that to work on it. That's going to be like an engine swap project. And then I do want to do some other things with my motorcycle. That's kind of waiting until spring and summer when the weather's nice. But if you want to see any of that, definitely subscribe to the channel. I try and upload once a month. We'll see what happens in 2024 if I do maybe 2 videos a month, or if once a month is going to be kind of my sweet spot. So don't worry, I won't fill up your inbox with notifications, but definitely hit the bell so you're notified every time I upload a video. just because I don't have that kind of standard upload schedule. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video in the comments. Tell me if you've ever seen these cars before, if you have ever heard of it before I made this video about it, and if you've ever had to go through the paperwork process of having a vehicle inspected to get it re-registered and back on the road. I'd love to hear from you, but that's gonna do it for this video, so I will see you in the next episode. Bye!